Good afternoon, Toronto. Chris Grove blasting in online from Vancouver, Canada, where it's strangely, it's a clear blue sky here, which is very odd for Vancouver, which has had one of the wettest winters in spring of all time. But thank you for your presence here today at PDAC. And I'm very happy to present to you the Ashram Rare Earth Element and Fluorspar deposit in Quebec, Canada. For those of you who know the rare earth element sector, we started looking for a world-class rare earth element project in 2005. At that time, yours truly and David Ian Hodge, who is probably around the booth somewhere there, we realized that the majority of rare earth elements were produced by hard rock carbonatite hosted deposits. And that's what we went looking for. And that's what we found in 2009. And in 2012, we released exceedingly positive economics on this asset, and we have optimized those economics for the last decade. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself, but it's a pleasure to present to you today. In terms of corporate information, we're actually trading today flat at 22 cents on this horrible market day, and so we're happy to be at least trading flat. Zimtu Capital, the booth you are in right now at PDAC, that is run by our parent company and also our largest shareholder. We also have a significant shareholder in the government of Quebec through their fund Investissement Quebec. It's been a bit of a roller coaster ride in terms of the share performance over the last year. We hit this peak in April after our first production of a commercially marketable rare earth carbonate sample. I will discuss that in more detail shortly. And then we fell off mainly because of, the inflation rates, et cetera, and other anxiety-inducing elements in the overall markets. But at any rate, we're glad we're still here. We're glad we have capital to move ahead, and we're really glad we arguably have the best rare earth element project on planet Earth. In terms of our board, you will see our project manager, Mr. Darren Smith, showing up at the booth sometime soon with a much larger red beard. His wife, Murray Smith, who is our manager of the social and environmental sustainability manager, is her actual title. She has been doing great work for us for years and years, based on our interest in only using the best corporate practices for the environment and the social issues. David Ian Hodge is somewhere around the booth there if you have any specific questions for him. Jumping in right away into rare earth elements, as Nikola Tesla said about a century ago, 1,000 years hence, the telephone and the motion picture camera may be obsolete, but the principle of the rotating magnetic field will remain a vital living thing for all time to come. This is an extremely important point, and there's never been a point in human history where this point is more true than it is today, as the world continues to transition away from fossil fuels over to the renewables and to the increase of electric motors. If you just dried your hands in the washroom with a Dyson hand dryer, or if you were blowing leaves on the weekend with an electric leaf blower, you'd know potentially what I'm talking about. The power of an electric motor that is built around permanent magnets chasing each other, the power is amazing, and that is the highest and the best use for rare earth elements today. One of the things that we're very interested in is the recent Canadian budget, and this $3.5 billion in total that was put aside for critical mineral projects. And we're certainly looking for more detail and clarification on how this capital is being deployed. I had a very substantive and positive call with the Ministry of Natural Resources a week ago, and they apparently are going to introduce me to Transport Canada, who are specifically working on this $1.5 billion for new infrastructure investments for critical minerals projects. And that's all we do. Everything we do is critical minerals, and that's rare earth elements, fluorspar, tantalum, and niobium. Those are all on the Canadian critical minerals list, as they are also on the US government's critical minerals list. At any rate, we look forward to understanding better where this capital may go. In terms of electric vehicles, this is one of the best ways to look at, understand the increase of demand of rare earth elements in general. And you can see these numbers just going absolutely parabolic last year. And arguably Q1 and Q2 of 2022 are going to be a continuation of this graph, if not a steeper climb, because of currently the incredible price of gasoline. Who wants to own an internal combustion engine vehicle when it costs you $100 to gas that car up, as it does for me at the last time I filled my car up? At any rate, the EV sales that we're looking forward to seeing in 2022 will be the greatest number of sales in 2 quarters, arguably. In terms of rare earth element prices, this is a chart that goes back 2 years, and you can certainly see this appreciating trajectory over the last 2 years. And currently, rare earth element prices are significantly higher, more than double where they were when we used them and factored them into our preliminary economic assessment in 2012. Over the last decade, the global demand for rare earth elements has more than doubled, and in the last 20 years, there was only one new commercially significant producer of rare earth elements, and that's Lynas out of Australia. In so much as MP Materials in California was a reboot of the mine that was put on care and maintenance back in 2002. Then it was brought back into operation in 2011, and the management at that time essentially allowed the company to go bankrupt. Although the deposit itself is good and it's now back in operation, has been back in operation since 2017. They are producing about 50,000 tons of a rare earth element mineral concentrate, which is currently valued at about $8,000 per ton, i.e. Annual revenue somewhere around $400 million for material that is not as attractive as what we naturally have in our deposit. At any rate, we are also expecting in general rare earth element demand to continue to increase. As we like to say, all roads lead to the Ashram Rare Earth Element Fluorspar deposit, which is the world's largest carbonatite-hosted monazite dominant defined resource of rare earth elements. We're also the largest monazite dominant defined resource of rare earth elements in North America. Why I focus on this word monazite is because specifically monazite hosted deposits have more of the magnet feed material, and that's what makes you money. Ultimately, in terms of milestones, in March, as I pointed out at the beginning of the presentation, when our stock hit a recent peak, that was because of the production of this commercially marketable sample of rare earth carbonate. Then in April, we produced 55 more grams of this material, and news released that. And currently we are producing 2.5 kilos of this material for delivery to interested industry majors who have requested these samples from us. We're certainly happy to keep you up to date on the delivery of those samples and potential commercial discussions following the delivery of these samples to these majors. Ultimately, the ashram is in Nunavik, which is the top third thereabouts of Quebec. This area, Nunavik, is under 2 agreements, one called the James Bay Northern Quebec Agreement, signed in 1975, and then followed by the Northeastern Quebec Agreement in 1978, which essentially set out very clearly all of the steps to advance a mineral project in Nunavik. Arguably, Nunavik is the most attractive mining jurisdiction in North America, I would say. In terms of the government of Quebec, as I said, they are a shareholder. The government of Quebec has also financed 2 large infrastructure projects over the last 30 years. The most recent one was the Stornoway Hall Road in 2010-2011. That road is a 200-kilometer long driveway to one mine. And back in 1996, 1997, the government of Quebec also financed a 165-kilometer long driveway to Glencore's Raglan project. We have been told for a decade now that the government of Quebec is interested in building a road of about 180 kilometers not just for us, but for all of the projects in this general area, which is called the Labrador Trough, up to tidewater on Ungava Bay. We are certainly looking forward to that being a reality. In terms of some fundamentals for rare earth elements, as I said at the beginning, David Hodge and myself realized way back in 2005 that we needed to look for a carbonatite hosted rare earth element project. And then we also were only interested if it was dominated by any of these four minerals: monazite, bastnasite, xenotime, or maybe loperite, but that was a very small chance. Ultimately, there are over 150 rare earth element minerals that exist. When people say rare earth elements are abundant on the Earth's crust, they are typically talking about rare earth elements being hosted in one of these 150 rare earth element minerals that have never been commercialized. Ultimately, we are only interested in the four, and we're only interested in the four that were commercialized, and we were primarily focused on monazite and bastnasite, and that is what the Ashram is. It is a monazite dominant carbonatite. In terms of historical producers, there should be a copy of this presentation at the booth there, and you can take a look at all of the carbonatite hosted current producers of rare earth elements on planet Earth. Lynas themselves actually is a weathered carbonatite, so it technically is called a laterite. And ultimately, they had some issues in terms of processing, which the original $260 million from the Japanese government allowed them to solve. Yes, they are in production today. However, they still have some issues with their highly radioactive material, but that's for somebody else to explain to you. Ultimately, the world's largest producer of rare earth elements is Bayan-Obo. It is a carbonatite. It is monazite dominant with a bastnasite secondary, and the Ashram project is the project that compares most favorably to the world's largest producer. You can see here that we're both carbonatite hosted deposits. We are both dominated by monazite, followed by bastnasite. And then we have a little bit, as our project manager likes to say, of xenotime spice, which ultimately increases our percentage of the magnet feed material. This is the current geological model for the Ashram. As we like to say, it is technically called a huge honking blob. It is a consistent mineralized deposit from surface down to below 600 meters as we have drilled it. And it does have these two zones, Zone A and Zone B. And the Zone A actually has a slight increase in the two rare earth elements that are most important for the market today, which are neodymium and praseodymium. The current resource right now is 1.6 million tons at approximately 2%, 28 million tons at 2% approximately, and 220 million tons at the same grade. However, this resource was based upon only 15,000 meters of drilling, and we have added another 13,000 meters of drilling, primarily infill, and this will come out in our pre-feasibility study, or the new resource will come out with the pre-feasibility study. As I said just a few slides ago, in terms of the importance of having the maximum amount of the magnet-making rare earth elements, you can see here that Commerce Resources in the A zone has 24.7% of these four rare earth elements. Lynas has 23.6%. Bayan-Obo has 21.9%, and then Mountain Pass is way down at 16.4% of these same four rare earth elements, which are so important for your economics. Ultimately, in terms of the PEA, this was done pre-tax as it was done in 2012. We will do the pre-fees, of course, post-tax, but the pre-tax NPV was 2.3 billion. The pre-tax internal rate of return was 44%, and this was based upon only what we had achieved at that time, which was a 10% rare earth element concentrate. And it was based upon just the rare earth elements. No value was ascribed to our byproducts. It was also, the economics were detailed on commodity prices that are less than half of where they are today. In terms of the optimizations we've achieved in the last decade, this is a list here. We added over 13,000 meters of drilling to the resource. The hydromet flow sheet is now based on concentrates that are better than 40%, 4 times what they were in the PEA. We have had significant optimizations of the flow sheet itself, and we will be looking to add the very valuable fluorspar byproduct in the pre-feasibility study. In terms of those rare earth element prices, as I said, this is the list of prices on the left-hand side here used in the PEA. Praseodymium at 59, neodymium at 60, terbium at 764, and they are now respectively 147, 148, and $2,100 a kilo. So we are very interested to see what these much higher commodity prices do for our economics. In terms of the requests, the industry requests for material from us, as I may have mentioned, we're currently working on producing 2.5 kilos of the rare earth carbonate we first announced producing in March. And these two, this material is going to 2 industry processors. I'm not at liberty to say their names in public, but they are 2 companies trading at respectively market caps that are significantly higher than ours right now. However, we have had sample requests from approximately 30 international majors, including as well, I'd like to point out, the UK-based company Less Common Metals, which is the first commercially significant rare earth element metallization facility outside of China. Anybody that wants to manufacture a permanent magnet, they need, their ideal input feedstock is rare earth element metal, and Less Common Metals is the only commercially significant metallization facility outside of China. And yes, they requested a sample from us 4 years ago. So I will try to keep you up to date if you have interest in which entities we're speaking to or looking forward to entering into commercial discussions with. We're also very concerned about the principles of ESG, as we have always been. We had a signed development agreement with the First Nations in 2010 on our project in British Columbia, and we continued with these same principles at our deposit in Quebec. And for these practices, we were awarded the E3+ award from the Quebec Mining Association in 2015. We are also very proud of the letter of intent we have with the dominant social group in Nunavut, which is the Inuit, as represented by their 2 corporations, the Makivik Corporation and the Niobium Land Holding Corporation. Our last meeting with the Makivik and the Niobium was in person on May 10th in Kuujjuaq itself, which is the most populous Inuit community in Nunavut. And then we had another catch up on a phone call, a Zoom call on May 20th. In terms of the pre-feasibility study, the lead firm on this is BBA out of Montreal, and all of these other groups are working and providing data in their specific areas of expertise. We have also been the beneficiary of provincially and federally funded optimization programs. And the most important one, arguably, is the one being run under NRCan or operated by CanMet Mining. This program, which has just started its next 2 years, has a greatly increased budget of $58 million. And again, we are going to be the primary beneficiary of this program. Ultimately, as we reach the end of this presentation, the Ashram Rare Earth Element Fluorspar deposit is the most attractive type of commercially viable rare earth element deposit historically, which is a monazite dominant carbonatite. We have produced high-grade mineral concentrates. We have then produced commercially marketable mixed rare earth carbonate samples with over 21% neodymium praseodymium, which is extremely attractive, ideal input feedstock for any rare earth element processor on planet Earth. We're located in a great jurisdiction. We have a huge resource. We did release an extremely positive preliminary economic assessment, and our pre-feas is underway. I thank you very much. If you have any questions, either online or otherwise, you can certainly enter them in the chat or just speak to me, from the booth there in Toronto. Thank you very much.